The tensions between India and China are at an all-time high, and we can't predict what's going to happen next. In last week, we learned 20 of our Indian soldiers were martyred in counterattack against PLA, People's Liberation Army of China. Many of us felt the need that enough is enough and we need to strike back against the dragon country, which may ultimately lead to war between two of the most populated countries in the world. So what happens if India and China go to war? Can India be victorious? Instead of pretending and making assumptions on what would happen, let's go through every single fact, details in existence, and I will break it down to you in every single aspect. Firstly, feeling the need for war isn't good for both the countries. Unless it is the only way to resolve the issue and protect the country, we should not consider it. You will find my statements justified by the end of this video. In 1962 Sino-Indian War, China defeated India convincingly, and Global Times, the English newspaper from China, stated that India will suffer even worse loss than 1962. That might not be entirely true, and even China might face upset if they underestimate Indian armed forces. What would happen in the case of military face-off between India and China? Does the general feeling that China has far more military strength than India be the game changer as many predicted? A close examination shows it might not be true. Recent studies from Belfer Center at Harvard and the Center for New American Security (CNAS) tells different story. The report estimates China's defense budget in 2019 to be more than 5 times of India's, and the PLA appears to maintain growing tactical edge over India's armed forces. The People's Liberation Army Ground Forces has almost 1.6 million troops in active service, which remains the world's largest army, whereas the Indian Army with approximately 1.2 million soldiers comes in either second or third place. But we must understand both India and China have many threats from other countries in the borders, and they cannot invest an entire army to face each other. If they do so, the other parts will be compromised and will be easily captured by their enemies. So India will remain second in order of consideration for China, who focus the bulk of their attention and military resources on countering US and first island chain extended from Japan to Taiwan and Philippines. Meanwhile, India continues to fight with a series of slow-burning internal clashes such as religious, political, and with the many challenges posed by Pakistan. However, the two studies points out that India has a key unnoticed general advantages which are not recognized that will reduce its vulnerability to Chinese threats and attacks. Now let us compare both the countries' forces in details. Nuclear strike forces. When it comes to nuclear strike forces, the Belfer report says that in all, an estimated 104 Chinese missiles could strike all or parts of India. Chinese nuclear forces include land and sea-based hot missiles and aircrafts that may emerge as a nuclear bombers, whereas the bulk of India missile forces are located closer to Pakistan than China. With estimates around 10 Agni-3 launchers can reach the entire Chinese mainland, another 8 Agni-2 launchers could reach the central Chinese targets. India has a payback principle which heavily depends on widely distributed armory and secrecy of its location, which possess trustworthy second strike capabilities. So if we were to believe these reports, India has nuclear bases that were unidentified and can be used if the situation demands. Irrespective of the actual existence of these centers, this will create a serious fear to the opponents. Next, Army. The Belfer report estimates the Indian Army has total available strike force of around 2,25,000 personnel in the China-facing northern, central and eastern commands. Even though the corresponding Chinese figures can be considered numerically close, there are a number of other factors at play. The CNAS report credits Indian Army's experience and battle-habituated nature as game changer. Since the 1962 Sino-Indian War, India fought the Kargil conflict in 1999 and faces proxy war and regular conflict with Pakistan. Even the Western Army troops participating in war games and exercise regularly have expressed an unwilling praise and admiration for Indian Armed Forces' tactical creativity and high degree of adaptability. Whereas the PLA's last conflict has been 1979 Vietnam War, where it faced stiff loss from resistant Vietnamese. As I said before, India and China face threats along multiple regions. Explaining the same, researcher M. Tyler Farwell has written that China takes US military deployment along with Central Asia as serious threat, and the China also facing internal clashes in some major areas. Taking Himalayan outskirts will be clear advantage for India. CNAS estimates in pure numbers Indian ground forces exceed Chinese. Considering the closeness to the LAC means line of actual control. LAC is the line that separates Indian controlled territory from Chinese controlled territory. And India also maintains a large number of military and paramilitary troops along the various plains, mountain passes and valleys that provide the most obvious potential points of Himalayan entrance. whereas China orders the bulk of its armed forces within its country's center to rise forward in the event of a fight. The recent Indian acquisitions of Apache and Chinook rotary wing assets along with military transport aircraft such as C-130 and the Globemaster C-17 will act as a critical rapid firepower which helps the Indian troops who were in trouble and can't be found. Now in Himalayan outskirts, there is a massive infrastructure construction from Chinese side in Tibet, which includes highways and high-speed rails, helps the Chinese army for the faster movement in Tibetan plateau. But Indian forces have to struggle by the hilly nature of the area structure on their side of the border. This is one issue where India suffers. Now, Navy. According to the CNAS, the Indian Navy is widely considered to be capable and balanced marine force, with approximately 137 ships and submarines and 291 aircrafts under their command. In the case of multi-front attack, India enjoys a 5-1 quantitative advantage over Pakistan. So if you ask me, it is not a good idea to mess with Indian Navy. However, India is facing a tight contest from China over its dominance in Indian Ocean. As experts said, China's use of Sri Lanka's Hambantota port and Gwadar in Pakistan is kind of suspicious plotting. China is also cementing its position in South China Sea with construction of multiple artificial outposts. In addition to this, the report claims that Indian Navy is in a crucial need for update in their infrastructure. The Indian Navy's share of overall defense budget has continued to fall over recent years, dropping from an average of 15 to 16% from 2010s to 12% in 2018-19. Air Force. In the Himalayan sector, due to insufficiency of Chinese air-based infrastructure and to the severe operational restrictions both in the terms of fuel and payload capacity, India has a strong regional air position in large part of it. That means India can hold a major advantage against China. In all, the Belfer study estimates that Indian Air Force has an estimated of 270 fighters and 68 ground attack aircraft towards China in northern, central and eastern regions with focus on expanding network of advanced landing grounds. Crucially, they are all situated permanently close to China's border, reducing their assembling time and stopping China from crossing borders successfully. The introduction of S-400 air defense system will create a great impact in this battle. Comparing the 4th generation fighter jet, Belfer estimates that China's J-10 fighter is technically compared to India's Mirage 2000 and that Indian Su-30 MKI is superior to all the theater Chinese fighters, including the additional J-11 and Su-27 models. Therefore, India holds a clear advantage even numerically. China has a total of around 101 4th generation fighters in the field, of which a part must be retained for Russian defense, while India has around 122 of its similar models directed singly towards China. Finally, South Asian impact. Post-Chinese attacks, a renowned US research has said that China's immediate goal in South Asia is to reduce any fightback from India and control its exploding partnership with the US. According to the report, the real counter to China in South Asia is India. In South Asia, unlike Southeast or Central Asia, there is a natural supreme leader in India. China cannot ignore it easily, and India has always viewed China as equal rather than a superior and has been examining the aims and actions of China's advances into borders carefully. So who will support whom? Post-Corona, unlike Pakistan, many countries find it tough to believe China. Even 8 countries form an alliance to counter China legally for economic crisis they caused. The least participating nations include US, Germany, UK, Japan, Australia, Canada, Sweden, Norway, as well as the members of the European Parliament. The US can't afford to support China as it is racing towards US position as global leader. So instead they want to eliminate China as it is their competition. Whereas in the case of Russia, it has land extended from Europe to Asia but population is less than Pakistan and it is not that strong as it previously was. Even though the ties between China and Russia are good for the past few years, the friendship between India and Russia goes long way back. But will it agree to stay on the same side as the US? So it will be interesting to find out on which side Russia ends up. Countries like Taiwan, Japan and Vietnam already have clear border issues with China. And as we all know, Pakistan will surely support China and the same might happen with North Korea. Countries like Australia and others from European Union is in more issues with China as stated above. So it is tough to predict. Even though Middle Eastern countries choose to be allies of China from the past, we can't say the same now as India has its own friend circle. From the history of world wars, it is clear that until the actual battle begins, we can't be so sure about who will end up where. And we can't pick a random country and say it will support so and so country unless we get a logical explanation for it. And the motives will change just like that. Ultimately, everything boils down to what will be their gain if they support India or China. The reality that gives an extra edge for India over China is that China is in a pretty deep mess from corona crisis. They will try to occupy our area and India will try to defend. But China is surrounded by many border issues. Even if we consider India, their biggest threat will be the US. Therefore, they have to take care of every other matter in parallel to India. So that might leave us the biggest advantage even though we have issues with Pakistan. Lastly, consequences. Effects of war might be more devastating than predicted, as we can never know how long it can go. Losing soldiers from both the countries will be for sure, but how many could we afford is the question. The economies might take serious hit which will change the landscape of the entire world, as we already are in the severe recession due to coronavirus. War effects might last decades even if nuclear attack is out of picture, and the collapse of market, job opportunities, hunger crisis and pushing the middle class towards the poverty will be the biggest fear. Even considering facing a nuclear attack is gut-wrenching. So finally, if the war is inevitable, then we are in for a horrific disaster irrespective of the result. If we ended up winning, then it might help a little. As if we were to believe the reports and the fact, India is in no position to give up and hand out an easy win. As of now, chances of India winning are very high. But the result is always unpredictable. So what do you think? Write down your thoughts in the comment section. You can also follow me now on Instagram under the username Brodha_speaks. Leave a like and please share this video. And for more interesting videos, subscribe to the channel.